Welcome.
Howdy everyone, I'm Joshua Irwin,
And I'm Wakulchik.
and this is our show,
Rewind.
and Reverse.
Hi everyone. Once again, my name is Wakulchik. Welcome to my show, Flight Feathers. I am an interdisciplinary artist, and this body of work focuses on transitional life periods. This body of work is the result of navigating the tension between nostalgia and looking at the possibilities ahead. I feel stuck in the frustration of the almost as I try to find a sense of belonging in the world. My friends, family, and identity all matter to me, but it's time to leave this place, and I want to leave this place, but I still don't want to leave anyone behind. I work in both oil and ceramic. I like to leave visible marks as seen on the feathers of these 3D forms and in the brush strokes on the flat surface of the canvas. These marks record my spontaneous gestures as I work through the nature of these emotional experiences. These 3 paintings here depict past homes that I've lived in. This red brick house here is the house that I grew up in. I have all of my earliest memories here, like learning how to ride a bike and getting my first pet. And this brick house over here is the home that I lived in with my mother and brothers for 5 years. And even though we didn't spend as much time here, we got to live right across the street from my grandparents and close to other family members as well. So it was a great time. And then this painting in the middle is my current college apartment. This is where we spend a lot of time watching movies and also horrible reality TV shows. And this time here has gone by very quickly, and I will be leaving here soon. As you can see in the background in all of these pieces, there's an oncoming storm in the distance. And this could perhaps be symbolic of transformation and the turmoil that accompanies beginning something new. And as you can see, the flock is traveling away from these places just as we are all preparing to leave the nest. This next piece is all about reminiscing on past memories fondly. This is my best friend Bella, and we've kept a tote full of memories since middle school with things like tickets, notebooks, and anything like that. And her and I are both currently in different stages of life, where she just graduated from college and started her first job, and I'm planning to continue my education. And even though we don't see each other as much as we used to, we still have such a strong connection from over the years. This last piece is all about acceptance and coming to terms with the uncertainty of the future. The figure is looking up at the flock, accepting that there are so many unknowns. And the flock itself is representative of the community around me. I think it's very important to find comfort in this community as we all approach this next stage of life together. The large scale of the flock creates a feeling of being a part of a whole. My goal with this exhibition is to acknowledge the conflicted state of transition while also prompting the understanding that it's okay to hold your guiding memories dear, even as you let them go, so that you're free to embrace the uncertainty of the future. And to everyone who's been a part of getting to this place and everyone who will join me in what's next, thank you. On to the next speaker.
Hello everyone, once again, I'm Joshua Irwin, and this is my show, Late Stage Parody. In this exhibition, I'm exploring the ties between hyper-consumerism and the fandom media landscape. Ever since I was a child, I've had a huge appreciation for everything pop culture. From movies, to video games, to comics, I consumed it all. I even checked out the Marvel Encyclopedia from the library and read it front to back. 5 times. But as I grew older, I started to realize that this thing that was giving me so much joy, this source of escapism, was also actively perpetuating late-stage capitalism. That I was a piece of this machine that was feeding to consumers. And when you live in a world that's constantly selling to you, it's easy to want to buy. But sometimes it's kind of fun to buy. I mean, think about a Pokemon pack. Yes, they're addictive and they're probably not good for financial reasons and they're constantly cheap thrills, but maybe I just really like Bulbasaur. I'm getting off topic. What I'm trying to say is that being in the consumer world can feel like you are a video game character climbing never-ending levels. And that's why with this first piece I want to talk about, I opened it up with a character select screen similar to old video games. So if you go over here, this first piece is titled Commercial Living and is a short film. After you leave the loading screen, it enters these very dreamlike sequences full of lo-fi music and beautiful scenery. You follow these characters, but you never get to sit with them very long in tranquility before being interrupted by commercials that are advertising their vices or desires, or maybe just their favorite soda. As we move over here, this is my next piece, a comic titled Hey You Kaiju. In this comic, I really wanted to explore ideas about how social media has changed how we interact in pop culture. Specifically, what it's like to try and climb that platform. I created this where the characters are kaiju hunters, and it's their job to hunt down these giant monsters, also known as kaiju. In exchange, they are broadcasted and they gain fame, notoriety, and brand deals. They can then take that and then sell cheap soda with their face on it. They can any cereal box. They're basically selling their safety in exchange for becoming famous. As a whole, I decided to make this exhibition an installation because I feel like that was the best way to do world building. It was the best way to transport you to somewhere that I created that feels similar to your life, but also distinctly different. I believe that a lot of media nowadays is steeped in nostalgia, and we're trying to grasp on to that childlike wonder we had when we were kids, and to see a world that's more exciting than the one outside your window. And so with this, I hope to transport you to a place where kaiju can exist, and so can magical girls, but also reflections of the social and political problems that we're having in our current society. In this exhibition, it is my hope that you see these parodies of our life and you can reflect upon them in your own. And that you see my appreciation for world building and narratives, but they are thinly veiled in an awareness of the capitalistic state that we're living in. Thank you. And do we have any questions?
I have a question. How was it navigating both having installation work that's pretty large scale? I guess how did you guys navigate that?
It was definitely a team effort, and we had to rely a lot on our friends, which we appreciated so much. And it's not something that we could have done without help, and I think that's part of what makes it so special.
Exactly. We really had to just lean on each other and make it happen.
Other questions?
Joshua, do you think that you had any, are there any really big thematic influences? The kind of superheroes as a parody or as a way of speaking on current economic situations? Is there any stuff that really informed that for you?
Yeah, I would say for this show in particular, some of my biggest influences are Adult Swim. I feel like that's really within the commercials and the videos, and they also have a lot of like very satirical commentary. I'm also a fan of comics as a whole. The TV show The Boys also has a lot of commentary using superheroes. This is a much more like colorful and I guess comedic take, not dark humor take than that. But yeah, I would say those are some really big influences for me.
Do we have any questions online? We have 11 viewers.
We have
10. I'm going to ask the question that I always ask. You know, as you have, you know, gone through your years and making artwork and having critiques and being in group shows, that kind of thing. But then when you have the idea for your thesis exhibition, and as the first question asked about large-scale installation, you know, how has the work, how has this installation kind of helped shine on the work, or like pull it together, or transform it in some capacity? You know, how has it worked for, or has it worked against your thesis ideas?
For me personally, assuming I understand the question, I feel like I've never existed into like a proper like art space. I feel like a lot of my work has been multimedia for a very long time. So I've always done like animations and painting or stop motion and sculpture. And this has been like an interesting sort of culmination of everything, because I've got like animation and video and illustration. So this really feels like it was like a merriment of everything that I've been working on in a sort of Frankenstein way.
Yeah, I feel similar. I've done, of course, painting and ceramics separately, but I've never really tried to combine the two mediums before. And I figured it would be the kind of thing where I'd have to get everything in here and see how it went together, and that was the case. So it was just a huge learning experience along the way.
You mentioned you haven't really combined them before. What drove you to do that? Why both like oil and ceramic?
Yeah, I really wanted to have some overlap between the 2D surface and the 3D surface. So being able to create these forms that come out from the wall and transition off of the wall from that side was what inspired me to go through with it.
What are your thoughts as a ceramicist? Turn it back on you.
As a rule, I don't have many thoughts. Good stuff.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Zelda Thayer-Hansen.
I'm Chloe Sampson.
And I'm Isabella DeRose, and this is our group BFA exhibition titled Ties.
All right. So again, my name is Zelda Thayer-Hansen. I am a sculptor and expanded practice studio art major, and I primarily work in the realm of performance art, and I have some drawings and interactive pieces to show you today. So these two pieces come from my series within my thesis called Wakulchik. I've titled these Directional Behaviors of an Annotated Body. They were created last semester based on some symbolic forms of Laban notation, which is a form of choreographic notation for dance that I have begun to study. I am by no means well versed in it, but I started from some notes from books that I had collected and am using this motif of the small circle representative of one dancer, but in this context, just a human being. And so these two pieces have this visual score of some sort that incorporates both a small circle in the middle surrounded by many circles, indicating whether or not they are facing inwards or outwards. So starting from this piece, I was wanting to use techniques of gestural mark making, which as I work to make documents of performance after the fact, I've started to use this mark making technique to show the movements of my body in space as they interact with, in this case, the drywall. So I started first with the green piece and incorporated a sort of gridded network, and then also contrasted that with gestural line drawings of figures. And then after the fact, I made the blue piece, which is far more gestural free, as you can see within this motif of the circle. Half of the beings in this setup are now facing outwards. So it is this sort of sigh of relief. There is less attention drawn towards the center of the circle and more movement within the figures along the side. And then I have 4 sections of drywall as well that are all set up in nearly an identical form, referencing how they were originally. I worked for 10 hours doing a performance piece on November 6th, 2024 from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., where I went off of a list of 11 tasks that seem to constantly reappear on my to-do lists, and repeated each of these tasks for 3 minutes over the course of 10 hours. One of which was drawing, and then another was in the realm of preparing my thesis. So it's both, these drawings work as representations of my movement within the space as I let my gestures be very free-flowing, and then also some sections of them have notes and sort of brainstorm clouds and ways to get out all of these thoughts in my head that I'm trying to put on paper and figure out what this thesis means to me. So this piece in general was a way to welcome people into a gallery space, which I had set up as my studio / home base for the 10 hours. And although at times I was the only person in that gallery, I still considered it a performance because I'm interested in studying where these lines are between performance and just being on your own, and whether you are performing for yourself or performing for others on a daily basis, even within these quotidian tasks. And then finally, I have a table laid out over here, as well as a clipboard with a performance prompt on it. So it is actually an interactive performance. I'm asking people to read the prompt, which tells you about the jumble of items on the table. All of them belong to me and come from just my home space. And I ask the viewer to sort these items, all pretty much inanimate objects, between two categories which they define for themselves. And it's kind of this experiment that I have started to run with groups as well to see and show people how difficult describing binaries of inanimate objects can be and how arbitrary binary systems really are, because things can be characterized as so many different, energies, and they can be switched around to match with other objects or be completely different. And then once people have sorted these, I ask them to post a photo of it on Instagram so that I can then have photo documentation of every person's individual sorting, and then having people write their two categories on the clipboard. So that was some information on my work on Frog Logic. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sampson, and I'm a sculpture and a spatial practice student. And my body of work explores the benefits of intentional time spent outside and then how that can benefit our connection to the land and help us be better stewards of the land. So each sculpture is a different archive or documentation of intentional time spent outside. This was the first piece that I made for my thesis, and it is titled "Taking It All With Me," and it consists of black maple leaves and O-rings connecting them. And every day throughout the months of September and October, I was collecting these leaves and visiting this tree and really watching the transition from summer to fall. And when I was initially making this, I really just knew that I was interested in the material and not so much the process that was happening, but the more I was with this tree, I was just seeing how my entire project depended on how quickly this tree was going to lose its leaves. So I believe this is around 300 to 400 black maple leaves, and it is a collaboration with that tree. And then moving on to this piece. This was created in November of 2024, and each skein of yarn is a finger knit line that documented my walks along the Hawkhawking bike path. So I take that bike path all the time. It's one of my favorite places in Athens, and it's where I connect a lot to the land around me, and it's where I feel very at home. And so I wanted to document my walks and archive them. So I finger knit as I walked, and each line caught debris, and I was able to create a collaboration with the path. And I have the length of the walk and the weather, the date, and the time, if you're curious what it's like. And then, actually, go over there, sorry.
That's okay.
This piece is titled, Taking It All With Me. And I wanted to talk about, we all metaphorically carry land with us. We carry our childhood home, our first dorm, our elementary school playground. We all take those places with us in the way that we act and our memories and our habits. And I wanted to create a physical archive of all of the places that are important to me. So each little jar is a different place of importance. So I have like my grandparents' farm, my parents' house, my first apartment, and pretty much just any place that really stuck out to me. And I will be continuing to build this collection as I go to new land. And then coming across the gallery, this piece is titled April Showers, and it is a collaboration with two materials, steel and rain. So steel goes through a very cool process called rust, and it is the oxidation of iron and steel, and it occurs when it gets wet or it's exposed to oxygen. So I wanted to embrace this natural process and create an installation that highlighted it. So I was very lucky enough to have a very stormy week last week. So these sat out in the rain and they were painted by the rain. So yeah, this thesis show has been in the works for a long time for me, and throwing back to sophomore year, my first sculpture class ever, Dwayne gave me an assignment to lay outside for like 8 to 10 hours, and that just completely changed the way that I thought about myself and how I interact with the earth, and it basically led to all of this, and yeah. On to the next.
Hello, my name is Stella once again. Welcome to my side of the gallery. So this body of work that I'm presenting is my BFA thesis, is titled Split. In this context, the word refers to the absence of nuance in emotional experiences, and the play on hair split ends, of course. Through the lens of body care and hygiene, I explore the tender, sometimes painful transition between self-sufficiency and dependency. As children, we distinctly lack autonomy over our bodily needs and must rely on a caretaker to meet these intimate acts of care. Being fed, bathed, dressed, and tended to. As we mature, the balance shifts and we gain a sense of control over our own bodies. Yet with aging and illness, this autonomy can be taken away once more. In these experiences, we find ourselves once again in the role of a child. I'm playing with the word split in a literal and figurative sense, using fragmented or interrupted domestic objects to represent how the act of care becomes fractured and transformed. I've manipulated mundane and domestic materials such as the shower head, shoes, balloon, drain, hair, soap, plumbing, piping, etc. that I'm about to show you, and assembled them in ways that negate their intended functions. This inversion creates a space where the familiar becomes unfamiliar or the uncanny, inviting reflection on how the objects we rely on are recontextualized with shifting bodily autonomy. And then I would also like to quote from one of my favorite books that I've read by Julia Kristeva, Powers of Horror, an essay on objection. Objection is above all ambiguity, because while releasing a hold, it does not radically cut off the subject from what threatens it. On the contrary, objection acknowledges it to be in perpetual danger. And so I would like to start on this side of the gallery. Here, this is titled Drainage System, in which I have collected hair from my own brush over time and stranded it to this balloon that my mother gave me. So it is also an ode to the mother, and here we have kind of like a circuit almost that can open and close with the balloon holding it shut. And this piece to me is a reflection on like relationship with like mother figure, and moving on.
And here we have shower head. So I've manipulated this like actual functioning shower head to become non-functional and have stranded it with like raw flax fiber, which is a representation of hair visually. It is a fiber that is used to strengthen rather than weaken, but here I have weakened the fiber by not treating it or spinning it. It is typically used to spin rope or for linen fabric, two of which are very strong. So I have reversed that here as well, and also stranded a lot of copper-coated thread as a mesh with the copper shower head as like a comment on how different kinds of minerals and chemicals in water and can affect like our hair and the way that like our hair feels. And then I guess over here, I have this piece down on the floor titled Tippy Toes. So here I have made a pair of shoes crafted to the size of my feet out of wood, and then just covered them with paint and some knitted flax and pieces of my hair as well, on top of a soap tile. And for me, this is a reference to those like plastic princess shoes that like a lot of us have like experience with when we are little kids, and this is my adult version of those. They are taller and harder to wear, just like the Disney princess shoes, because they typically never actually fit the child who is wearing them. And this is just a transformation of materials negating their function. And then over here, we have my piece titled Motherboard, in which I have hand knitted this silk and mohair blend to reference a couple of things, like the cafe curtain, like underwear, and such. And the material is also a reference to the hair color that our hair tends to turn as we age, and it's an ode to like the great grandma figure. And here I have them bound to the wall with porch swing hangers. Because I had a lot of experiences with like my grandma and great grandma growing up, sitting on her porch swing. It's like the only experience with a porch swing I've ever had. When I think of a porch swing, I think of those figures in my life and the time spent with them, and how these are supporting like the weight of everything that they have created and done in this world. And then we have it filtering into a shower drain that is threaded with my hair that I collected from my own shower, and that this is just an insertion of myself and life into this piece. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
So maybe you want to go here, maybe?
Any questions?
I have a question. Chloe, I know that you mentioned Wayne's class as being like really a transformative experience for you. Zelda or Bella, did you have any, or Chloe, did you have any additional experiences that really like throughout your years have shaped?
Yeah, I actually forgot to mention mine, so it's funny that you asked that. Yeah, my first sculpture class sophomore year with Wayne as well was like so transformative to the way that I viewed my capabilities and how far I could expand my practice. And the project that he prompted on metal shaping and like metal fabrication was what really got me started, where we just made small molds out of like plywood and then clamped a sheet of aluminum over it and then like started going with those shapes. And I think that's when it really clicked for me, I believe.
Yeah, it's actually the only class I've been able to take with doing, but it was in my first semester of sophomore year. And I had just started to get into performance art, so I was still really shy about having my body as a part of a piece. And I think they really encouraged and pushed me to face that discomfort and that vulnerability that's really so like integral to performance art as a medium. And so it just continued to embolden me to work harder to get myself into these pieces. And then I also worked so much with Kate since freshman year, especially working on these performance modes and interactive work environments.
Yeah, besides just very amazing faculty and community in the social department, I like to turn to like books or research. Around the same time I got that assignment to lay outside for a long time, I was also reading a book called Shinrin Yoku. For those of you not familiar, that translates to forest bathing, and it is a study form of therapy that suggests that spending intentional time outside every day leads to mental and physical benefits. And reading that book just really like helped me feel like, okay, like I'm not like crazy for feeling amazing every single time I'm outside, and I want to make art that tells me to live outside. So yeah, books and school.
I've got a question for Zelda. And do you have your own 2 categories that you decide?
No.
No.
So these did start because I talked about specifically gender binary systems and gender performativity a lot in my work. And as a non-binary person, at least for me, I completely have this sort of numbness towards categorizing things as masculine and feminine. Growing up in a binary world, I've learned to know where to categorize things, but in almost every case, I really don't have a sense towards it. So I created a Google form to send out to people, and I got about 90 responses where I asked people what objects they found as masculine or feminine, and just from that, or neither, from that list, I did pretty much a full qualitative analysis of qualitative and quantitative. I counted how many objects of what kind people listed, and many were like larger objects that I couldn't include and stuff like this, but people talked about glass and wine versus beer and hammers and like the air outside, and so many different things that people are like strictly categorizing between these binary categories. But within this piece, I'm really interested in opening it up to show that there is an expansive form of binary systems, and because of that, why is that? Why is a binary system existent?
I have a question for I love how you have these kind of subtle touches of pink within your show. Do you want to talk a little bit more about the purposefulness of that color?
Yeah, absolutely. So with the choice of the color pink, I am more thinking about the body and the internal. And so like with my 2 pieces on the left here, and then a little bit of rusted metal on the long piece on the corner, it's just like very much an insertion of like humanity to it. And with the hot pink shade of these shoes, it is just like a quick reference to those plastic princess heels. So more just like a stark like reference to being a child and like a color of childhood to me. I feel like I was very attached to that color at a young age, and so you can see we are attached to that color at an older age as well. So I hope that answered your question. I have a question, Chloe. What's that?
I'm really interested in the piece behind me, and I think it's really interesting how you took a material that is seen as very rigid and unchanging, and were able to incorporate it into your thesis, which it has a lot of pieces that use materials that are constantly changing and won't last up over time, but you were able to like give it an element of change and like movement by its interaction with rust and rain. And I also see some of that with like the terrariums, because you got them from a specific like moment of your life, but they're going to continue to grow and shift. And I feel like all of the pieces in here will probably change over time, and maybe probably won't stay the way they are now. And I was wondering if you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, so I definitely embrace cycles in my work. You know, in the earth, that's a weird way to say it, but there's just constant cycles happening all around us all the time, even if we do not see it. So I like to embrace that with my work, and I like things that are able to follow those cycles and decay and not last, or change or grow. Just because I like to mirror the natural world in my work, because it is made from the natural world. But yeah, I definitely, I try to embrace those cycles as much as I can.
Any other one? Any more in here? Going off of the last question, was thinking about the ephemeral, right? Like, I'll still ask my standard question after this, but I think that all of your work really has an ephemeral kind of sense about it, right? Like pieces that may not stand the test of time, or like you were saying, they'll change over time. Like, and I think that there could be a comment on gender with that too, like sort of an impermanence to, I mean, like sculpture, or the sort of masculine aspects of certain sculptures, things that, you know, or materiality. But with that, I feel that all three of you have a very distinct visual vocabulary that you have developed over the course of your time here. And I guess that's a comment more than obviously a question. With that, do you feel, because I'm lumping you all three together at the same time as I'm talking about these things, do you feel that by exhibiting your work in this space, that it is in communication, or that it works well with one another in its variety, in its various sorts of outputs? And then how do you feel that this work has developed in its installation, right? Like shifting its meaning from studio space to installation space.
Yeah, so for your first question, all of our work does focus on rather different themes, and we've always known that about each other. And so creating a group show together and trying to find those connecting points was difficult at first. But then just really thinking about the raw, what are we each doing? We are each connecting in some way. We are each exploring ties to something or someplace or someone. So I feel like our work broadly relates, and it's been very fun the past couple of years, like sharing a studio and like being informed by one another as well. So I don't know if y'all have anything to add.
Yeah, I mean, like to add to that, sharing a studio space for so long, I feel like I see each of them in everything I made, and I feel like we each see each other in some form in everything that we do here, because we are each other's like go-to for like questions or feedback or just like anything, and we've just had a lot of access to each other, and I think that is why at this point, like it feels so cohesive, because we've been working on that for so long together.
Yeah. I know pretty much it. I was just gonna say, the studio thing, working together constantly and seeing what new materials each of us is working with. There have been some times where just we have like such similar pieces running at the same time that all have different meanings.
Yeah.
But visually, a lot of the time we use the same color palettes, and on our poster even, we brought together all of the things that we have tacked to our individual studio walls right in front of our desks, which are unrelated in just the fact that we've kept them in separate parts of the room, but as they come together, they're just kind of like a visual compound of what we all feel together. Like, they're my best friends, and so creating with them, even if we're not talking about exactly the same stuff, just feels really natural. This is our second time getting the show together, and probably not the last.
Hey. One last question. We all want to know. Tell us about your outfits.
We're artists.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Mute. Unmuted.
This is my favorite part of the gallery. It is our postcard stands.
So good.
Please take one. And thank
So
you,
good.
online viewers. Thank you. Yes, please help yourself.
Hello, my name is Greyson Lelux. I'm Sophia DiCuirci, and this is our show, Somewhere in a Locket. I'm gonna start over here on my section of the work. This is titled Ramblings of an Insomniac. I'm just gonna go ahead and read my artist statement just because that's the easiest. This work explores insomnia in a way that subconscious thoughts surface during the quiet hours of the night, blurring the line between dreams and wakefulness. This work reflects on memory, perception, and emotional vulnerability. Each poem is paired with a series of photographs that mirror the inner workings of the mind. The poems began as a late-night rambling, which later shaped into poetry. I then paired them with digital images that I feel like help the emotions captured in the text. Themes of anxiety, body image, exhaustion, longing for my childhood went throughout. I wasn't really looking for answers. I was just looking for a way to sit with these thoughts and give them form. This work is deeply personal, but open enough for others to find reflection with their own experiences. So I'm not going to go into too much detail of each piece, but this was where it started. So it started with text that on nights that I couldn't sleep, because I have insomnia, on nights that I couldn't sleep, I would take a pen or a pencil and just write about whatever it was that was keeping me up. And then I would take that and really dissect it and pull out the pieces that felt the most important to me. In this one, it's about wanting to be one with the earth. And so the images work along with that. We come over here, this one is about a recurring dream I have about a house that I get stuck in. And I think it's a good indication of my mental state. Just feeling stuck in this house. I'm gonna skip over this one for now, but this one over here is about how I don't feel comfortable in my own body. It's about how when I'm laying in bed and I can feel the sheets gripping my body, how I just don't like that feeling. And how sometimes I feel like a stranger in my own body. And then this one, kind of on a different tone, is about how I sometimes enjoy the loneliness of the night, but how at the same time I hate it. It's very bittersweet. And then go over here, this is a zine I made. This was kind of made in the middle of this whole process. And I just thought it was a different way to show all of this work. I think the handwriting in it is a good indicator of where this process started, because it did start with so much handwriting. And it's very story time, before bed story time. That's kind of the energy I was getting from it. So yeah, thank you. This is my work.
Hi everyone, like I said earlier, my name is Mattis Brown, and this is my BFA Thesis exhibition, Fragmented. The idea is viewers will come in and grab a zine when they first walk in, and within this is my artist statement. I wanted to do a zine so I could have something tangible that people would have in their hands and they would be able to take it home. So I'm going to read my statement. This is a lens held up to my personal relationship with time. Time is within all of us. It allows us to reflect, grow, and learn. We all have an individual, intimate, and intricate relationship with the passage of time. With collage, I tend to isolate and blend together photographs, as if to fragment and overlap memories. Photography is commonly used to reflect on memories and as a result process change. With my work, I examine photography's impact on the process of change, time's passage, and the feeling of deja vu. My photographic eye has a distinct style. I take interest in repeating patterns and lines, remembering each photo as I capture the next. This practice unifies all my work, past and present. Recalling memory plays a powerful role for an artist. We process change in the day-to-day. We live for the short term, longing for long-term. But with time, you find who you are, and with change, you become more than yourself. With time, you will always gain perspective, and with change, you will apply it. With time, you will find both love and sorrow, and with change, you will accept it. As a creative, I've learned that change is beautiful, but as a person, I've learned it's also so bitter. Photography is where I attempt to balance the two, both the bitter and beautiful, both the good and hard, both being a person and being an artist. So that is the umbrella statement for the entire show. I started off here. I've centered this piece. It's titled My Name, My Meaning. I wanted an introductory piece to kind of state who I was as a person and some of my meaning and values, basically because all of this entire show is through my lens and is about my personal relationship with time. I wanted to introduce myself and kind of have that affect the overarching themes of the show. So this piece, My Name, My Meaning, is about the origin of my name. I am named after two incredibly strong and courageous women, my great-great-grandmother, Fredrika Mattis, and a woman named Natalia that my parents met in Russia. My great-great-grandmother, she put away money that sent me to college, and it sent my mother to college as well. And my parents would not have met if she had not done that. So that's why I'm named after her. And then Natalia was a person that my parents met in Russia in the Peace Corps. They got married, moved away, and were navigating their first years of marriage in a foreign country. So she hosted them, took care of them, and I'm named after both of those women because of their courage and bravery, essentially. Not only that, but Mattis in German means gift from God, and Natalia in Russian means Christmas Day. So my name fully means gift from God on Christmas Day, and my birthday is Christmas Day as well. So that was just a beautiful story that I wanted to share and wanted to have that influence the lens of know the person that made the work in the first place. If we move this way, we have my digital work. I split the show between digital and darkroom process because both are important and I wanted to equally show both. This piece is titled Mother and I. It is about this photograph that I originally took months and months ago of my mother's hand. It shows so much about her, even though it's just her hand. She has this obsession with these crystal bracelets, and she loves nature. And it's this beautiful moment where the berries and the bracelets are the exact same color, and it just happens right in front of me. And I saved it, and I looked at it for a while, and then about 2 weeks ago, I was walking with all the cherry blossoms, and I saw this picture in front of me in my own hand. And it was a reflection of this moment that I had spent with my mother visually in front of me, just that moment happening again, and I could see all of her influence that she had on me. And so this piece is about remembering where you come from and how important those things can be. And sometimes artwork gets made months after you take it. Sometimes something gains meaning from perspective and time. This middle piece here is titled Push and Pull. It is an homage to basically just the act of recalling memory and how that feels. This was both during my DIY lens filter phase. I used steam when I was taking this series, so I would steam up the camera lens with my breath and then run to capture the images. It is supposed to just kind of be an homage to that, the franticness of memory, the peace within memory, how your memories change as you age, and just how much of a gift it is that we are able to remember. And then this piece is titled The Bee Sting. Again, it was with a DIY filter. This time I used rainbow window film. So I put that directly over the lens and created these beautiful, almost ethereal images. And as I was taking this one, a bunch of bees swarmed out of that and started to sting me profusely. So it was kind of a trip because I found out I was allergic to bees the day after that. The day after that, I found out I was allergic to steroids. And then the day after that, I had COVID because of all of the urgent care visits. So this work became what it is from the process and from sacrifice. And I just thought that it was so interesting that sometimes with art, the meaning finds you. And with this one, it was just that sometimes you make something so incredibly beautiful and then it derails your whole next week. So moving to this is my piece entitled Breathing Room. So I've always thought that it is super important as an artist and as a photographer that talks about time with my work. I try to rework work until it feels done. So this is the third rendition of this piece. Originally it was a digital collage. I ended up physically cutting up the collage, and then I placed it on plexiglass and put images behind it as well. The lights on top caused these very interesting multicolored shadows. I basically was trying to see how many things I could fragment. So I fragmented with initial cuts, with digital collage, with space, and then with light and shadow as well. This piece is it is a statement that is 2 sentences, and I think it puts it beautifully. It says, everything that we are is everything that we were. We are every moment to come and every moment that came before. So yeah, I do a lot of self-portraiture. This was an attempt to kind of combine some of my other modes of photography within my work and find a unifying way to show memory in multiple layers and as many layers as I possibly could. Like I said, I chose to fragment the lights. I used gels for this because I felt as though the harsh white it was very stark and it did not go with the kind of nostalgic, remembering, gift of memory feeling that I was trying to accomplish on the side. So if you want to follow me over here. This piece is titled And Yet It Moves. This was shot on a 120 panoramic Holga camera. I utilized the wide shot that panoramic film allows you to have by extending the prints with these strips and using different exposures for each one. Originally, the inspiration for this piece came from studies in astronomy that I've been doing recently, and Yet It Moves is a quote from Galileo. Long story short, he figured out that the sun revolved around the earth and that the earth did not revolve around the sun, and got in a lot of trouble for that because that's not what the Catholic Church was believing at the time. And because of that, I just had this really stark moment of like, we are all something so much bigger than ourselves. And I was trying to show that here with this extension of the image of like, I am something that is so small, just a tiny fragment of a bigger piece of puzzles. And so like that was what I was trying to do here with this piece. And I'm definitely going to continue on with this style of photography. We want to move here. This is my final piece on the wall. It is titled Obsession with Repetition. This image I took a little over a year ago. It is a single frame of my reflection in my bathroom wall, or my bathroom mirror, I should say. And shooting this process, I was fragmented with the space in the original shooting, and I think that's why I've become so obsessed with this image, because time and time again, I've come back to it, I've reprinted it. This is the 4th time it's been shown in the 4th rendition of it, because it just changes with time and with my style of how I grow as an artist. But this was a big aha moment for me when I printed this in the dark room. And the purposefulness of this image, like it was completely a happy accident, and all of a sudden it was like, I need to cut up everything I ever see ever. And that's how this one came to be. It felt important to show it because it virtually started the whole show. Again, it's from about a year ago. So that is all that I have. I'm gonna hand everything off to Gray now. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Greyson. I'm a photographer and integrated media major, and this is my work entitled Beyond Phrase. So this work serves as like an exploration of my identity and how I morphed and changed throughout the 4 years of being here, and how that kind of shows up in my work. The very first image I took was this one up here. This was when I first took my first photography class. I was struggling a lot with making meaning to my work, and the prompt we were given was intimacy, and I was trying to figure out what's like the most intimate part of my life, and I'm like, it was my like idea of how I was perceived. It felt very like a sensitive topic in that moment, and I wanted to express it in the best way I can. So I've been making work related to identity and being like trans, and at some points it feels very like
isolating, and it feels like you're stuck in this one moment of trying to be understood by not only yourself, but your peers, and being seen. And so that's why some of these images feel very tight and they feel very intense and kind of dark. But then you have these moments of like brightness and kind of like letting go of like what's you're supposed to be perceived as. And then not only this, but in the past like 2 years, I've been researching like gender performance and how that relates to me as a person or the trans community, but as like every single person standing in this room, and how that difference, like it's different for each person. And when I first brought this up in class, a lot of my classmates never even thought about this because it's not something that's necessarily talked about. And it's basically just like, how do we like choose to exist every single day? And are we choosing to exist based on how we're expected to, how society wants us to express ourselves, or are we expressing ourselves based on how we authentically feel? And so throughout the process of making this art, I was asking myself questions like, what does it mean to like exist within my body? Like when I get up and choose my clothing, am I choosing it because I know this is what I'm supposed to wear because I want to be perceived in this way, or am I wearing it based on how I feel that day? And I think this goes for every single person here. Like, why do we make the choices we do, and how does this affect how we're treated outside of our own bedroom? And so that's why all of my images are printed on transparent paper. So they are slightly see-through, and then they're placed on top of mirrors. So when you go up to them, you can see the outline of your own body and my work. So it's not only myself, but it's asking you the question, like, can you see yourself within this work? Like, you don't have to be trans to question who you are. You can be somewhere, anywhere on this like giant spectrum of identity. And then on this pedestal, I have little postcards that I would recommend everyone take if they want one. And then you turn it over and you scan it. And it's like this short little website, and there's some anonymous statements from trans people. And I all asked them the same question. I asked, how does it feel to exist inside your body? And they all gave me a brief statement. And then at the end is like my artist statement / like my reflection on that question. And I included this because I think it's really important to understand that it's not just like a identity, it's like our whole aura. Like it's confusing and it's sad and it's scary, but also it's like empowering, and we get to exist outside of this binary, and we get to have that moment where we actually get to ask ourselves who we are, which a lot of people don't get the opportunity to even think about because it's not normalized. So I had a class where I read these out loud while doing a little performance piece, and it was really interesting to hear people's feedback, because if you're not actively in the space where you're existing around these people, or you haven't felt these feelings yourself, it can get kind of like lost in translation. It kind of feels very like surface level, but it's so much more than that. And that's kind of what I wanted to do with this piece as a whole, is make it deeper, like ask yourself to push against the grain and really question like who you are and what makes you feel most like yourself in those moments, and what can you do to push yourself to be more authentic, like beyond societal norms. And yeah, I think that's it. Thank you.
All right, we have questions.
I have a question. I have a question for Mattis.
Yeah.
I have been very interested in the way that you cut your photographs up, and like I understood very clearly through your statement, like what they represent and how, and I'm just wondering like where you started with that. Where did you get that initial idea? Like when did it click for you that this is how you're gonna be doing it?
I think two things happened. I had an art teacher in high school that whenever I had artist block, which was often, she would tell me to just paint shapes and then go from shapes to layers and then just slowly build paintings up that were just these kind of abstracted like lines and patterns. And so that's where my initial like, I guess fascination with lines and cutting things really came from. And then taking that image of myself in my bathroom mirror and seeing the lines that were created from in a single image, I think was a big aha moment for me. And I've just always thought things were more interesting when you cut them up. And I don't know what that's about, but I've always, that's just been a constant in my practice. Thank you for asking that.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
I love your explanation of gender and queer joy and trans joy specifically. Is there a particular meaning assigned to the colors of the frames of your work?
I did pair like the darker frames with the darker images, and then they also feel like tighter, I feel like, especially for this Marvel one. I wanted it to feel like even the pose in the pictures, they're like you're grasping onto yourself and you're like holding yourself all in. So I put it inside this like circle frame that's like fully enclosed in the image. Is kind of what I was going for.
I was also curious about the frames, because it doesn't have filigree, it's painted bright gold. So I'm curious, like, what is behind all the really important?
Yeah, so when I was deciding how I wanted to make this look, I knew I wanted to do mirrors. I just wasn't sure exactly how. And so when I was thinking about aesthetic-wise, I wanted it to feel like you walk into like this old house with so much history and meaning, and then you see this collage wall of pictures of your family, of yourself, and it's like this history that you're like looking at, and nothing kind of goes together. It's like, I don't know, I feel like it relates to this, and like, I'm not just this one single thing. It's like this broad spectrum of everything, and I want it to be this history of not just me, but past queer artists or queer people, and I wanted it to feel very like homey, very like I didn't want it to be organized. I didn't want it to be like the same frame over and over, because that's not how my identity feels, if that makes sense.
I had a question for Greyson too, not so like we did that more on the frames, and not to ask you to reveal all of your secrets, but so then you said that it was printed on transparent paper and then put on top of a mirror, but I'm just so curious, like how you pulled it off, like process-wise, because some of them, I'm like, did you have to cut it to the shape? Was it originally a mirror and then you adhered it into the mirror? Like I'm just curious.
Yeah, so I bought I picked out all my mirrors first, and then I went through like my photographs and assigned each photograph a mirror that I felt worked conceptually with each other. And then I measured the size of the mirror, and then I printed everything that size, and so they were all original like rectangles as a blueprint, and then I cut all of them down like how I wanted them to be framed, like the circle one. I figured like how I wanted it so that the tip of the fingers in it, or like it hits right at the top of the head, and then I used sticky like glue dots, and then placed it on top of the mirror, so everything is like was cut out like by hand.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
And what maybe can't be seen in the camera lens is that they're slightly shifted. They're like the same size, but they're slightly off, so that it reveals that.
Yeah, and especially the one with the shirt.
Yeah.
It has more of like a flow to it, but the fabric, there's like 2 layers to it because it's slightly lifted out from here.
There's something about that reveal that, it's like not trying to be like a veneer that totally covers. It's like, it's that push and pull and play that I really, really like about it. Other questions?
I have a question for Soph. So Gray and Mattis kind of went into like their like, I guess, like reasons for why they like framed things in a certain way or displayed images in a certain way. And yours is a lot more traditional, and I'm wondering if that like speaks to your work or like, totally. I think a lot of this project was trying to organize my thoughts and simplify them, and because everything started like in ripped out notebook paper. So I think that this method of installation kind of like is a nod to that organization of like it started at one thing and it's like so much of organizing.
Yeah.
And it's like neatly folded in the box kind of thing. Yeah, does that answer your question? Yes, thank you.
I was thinking also like about how Sophia and Mattis have a lot of language, like a lot of written words in your thesis exhibition. Do y'all want to talk about how you have sort of paired that with your more visual artwork?
Yeah. For me, I know that in order to understand my art best, I always write about it. People that have had me in credit for years know that I will prepare a statement on my phone, even if I just have to give a brief explanation. And the writing felt like an art within itself and such an important part of my practice that even though there are hefty statements and maybe people won't take the time to read the whole thing, it's important to have the dialogue of context that I was thinking of surrounding the image making. I think that those things are inseparable. And instead of doing like a live reading at the show, I decided to just do large scale text prints.
I think all of my work starts as text, so I feel like it's very important to have the text in there in some way. And I think almost, not to say it's like more important than the images, but in a way like it holds a little more weight than the images. So I think it's important for it to be there. Yeah.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, join us on Thursday at 5 p.m. for the receptions in the Artec galleries. Thank you for tuning in online, people.